Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on video. Jessica had a way of making me feel like I was nothing. It wasn't obvious, not at first. It started small, little jokes, teasing remarks about my job, casual dismissals of my thoughts. But over the years, they piled up layer after layer until one day I realized I had no confidence left. I used to think it was just her personality, that she was naturally sharp-tongued, that she didn't mean to cut me down. But the truth was, Jessica enjoyed making me feel small. She got something out of it, a sense of superiority, like she was proving to herself that she was the prize, and I was lucky to have her. The worst part? I believed it. I ran a gym, something I had built from the ground up, pouring years of hard work into making it successful. I had a solid client base, trained athletes, and took pride in what I did. But to Jessica, it was just a cute little business. "It's not a real career, Ryan," she said one evening while scrolling through her phone at the dinner table. "I mean, sure, you make money, but you're not exactly changing the world." I clenched my jaw, pushing my food around my plate. Helping people get stronger, healthier, that's important. She smirked, not even looking up. "Yeah, okay." And just like that, with 2 words, she had dismissed something I'd spent my life building. I wish I could say that was an isolated incident, but it wasn't. It happened constantly. The eye rolls when I talked about a new client. The way she barely reacted when I mentioned expanding the gym. If I ever had a success, she treated it like a fluke. But if she had a win at work, we had to celebrate. It all built up, little moments stacking on top of each other, until I felt like a ghost in my own marriage. Then came the family barbecue, the night I finally saw it. Jessica had always been the center of attention at these things. She had this ability to command a room, to make everyone hang on her words. I had once admired it, back when I thought we were a team. But now I just braced myself, waiting for the moment she turned me into the punchline. I was standing by the grill, flipping burgers when it happened. Jessica laughed loudly from the patio table, wine glass in hand. "You guys should have seen Ryan trying to assemble the new treadmill for the gym," she said. "He spent hours on it, swearing under his breath like it was some impossible puzzle. Then he finally gives up and calls a professional. And guess what? The guy put it together in 20 minutes. Laughter erupted around the table. I felt my face heat up. Classic Ryan. Her brother, Evan, chuckled, always in over his head. I gripped the spatula tighter, forcing a smile. "Yeah, real funny." Jessica smirked. "Oh, come on, babe. It's funny." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see the woman I had married. I saw someone who enjoyed this. That was when I noticed her parents. Her dad had his arms crossed, his mouth in a tight line. Her mom was looking down at her drink. They weren't laughing. I had spent years convincing myself that this was just our dynamic, that maybe I was being too sensitive. But in that moment, I realized I wasn't crazy. Even they saw it. Jessica's laughter faded when she noticed I wasn't playing along. "Oh, don't be like that," she said, rolling her eyes. "You know it's all in good fun." I turned off the grill and set down the spatula. "You know what's funny, Jess?" I said, my voice calm. "I don't think I've ever once made fun of you in front of our family." The table went silent. She blinked. "What?" I leaned against the counter. "I don't belittle your work. I don't turn you into a joke for everyone to laugh at. But you do it to me all the time." Jessica's smile faltered. "Oh, come on," I shook my head. "No, you always do this. You tear me down like it's a game. And I've let you. I've sat here and laughed along, but I'm done." A heavy silence settled over the patio. Jessica's face hardened. "You're being ridiculous." Her mom shifted uncomfortably. Her dad spoke for the first time. "Jessica, maybe," she shot him a look, her nostrils flaring. "What?" "He's overreacting." I exhaled, shaking my head. "No, yes. I'm just finally seeing things clearly." She scoffed, standing up and grabbing her drink. "Whatever." She turned to her friends and forced a laugh. "Guess someone's feeling extra sensitive tonight." I let her have that last dig, because in that moment, it didn't matter. Something inside me had shifted. The woman I had spent years loving, supporting, trying to please, I didn't love her anymore. Not really. I had spent so much time trying to hold on to our marriage, but what was I really fighting for? A woman who saw me as a joke? A marriage where I had to shrink myself just to make her feel bigger? No, I was done. That night, as Jessica slept beside me, blissfully unaware of the storm she had created, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Jessica's public humiliation of me at the barbecue lingered in my mind long after the night had ended. I had spent years swallowing the disrespect, convincing myself that I was being too sensitive. But now I saw it for what it was. She enjoyed tearing me down. And worse, she didn't respect me. The next few days were quiet. Jessica acted like nothing had happened, barely acknowledging me beyond the usual small talk. Maybe she thought I'd just get over it like I always did. Maybe she thought my little outburst at the barbecue was just a fluke. She had no idea that something inside me had snapped. A few nights later, she invited me to dinner with her friends. Normally, I would have made an excuse, knowing it would just be another evening of them talking about their real careers while Jessica made me out to be some underachieving gym bro. But this time I said yes. The restaurant was upscale, the kind of place Jessica loved, dim lighting, white tablecloths, overpriced wine. Her friends were already there when we arrived, dressed like they had just come from some high-powered boardroom meeting. I could tell by the way Jessica lit up when she saw them that these were the people she actually wanted to impress. Not me. We sat, and within minutes, the conversation turned to work. Jessica's friend Daniel, a financial consultant, was going on about his latest high-stakes project. Clients like these, he said, swirling his wine, they expect you to know what you're doing. No room for mistakes. Jessica nodded eagerly. That's why I love my job. High pressure, high rewards. She took a sip of her drink and glanced at me. Ryan wouldn't get it. I set down my fork, my jaw tightening. Wouldn't get what? She smirked. You know, the kind of work that actually requires strategy. I heard a soft chuckle from the table. I took a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I don't know, I said, picking up my glass. Running a business, handling multiple clients, managing staff, that all seems pretty strategic to me. Jessica laughed, shaking her head. Babe, your job is physical. You don't have to think that much. Daniel smirked. Hey, but at least you're keeping people in shape, right? I clenched my jaw. Yeah, just like a doctor or a physical therapist. But sure, let's pretend it's all about lifting weights and looking in the mirror. The conversation stalled. Jessica raised an eyebrow at me, clearly surprised that I was pushing back. Normally, I'd just let her little jab slide. Not tonight. She forced a laugh. Relax, babe. You know I'm joking. I met her gaze, my voice calm. Are you? The table fell silent. Jessica's smile twitched. I saw it then. The flicker of discomfort in her eyes. She wasn't used to this. She wasn't used to me standing up for myself. The rest of the dinner was tense. Jessica kept stealing glances at me, her usual confidence shaken. I barely spoke, only answering when spoken to, letting her sit in the awkwardness she had created. On the way home, she finally broke. What the hell was that? She snapped as she slid into the passenger seat. I started the car, my hand steady on the wheel. What was what? She scoffed. That attitude. You embarrassed me in front of my friends. I let out a short laugh. I embarrassed you? I turned to her at a red light, my voice steady. Jessica, you've been embarrassing me for years. She crossed her arms. Oh, please. You're being dramatic. No, I said, my voice firmer. I've let you humiliate me, mock me, act like I'm beneath you. I let it slide because I thought that's just how you were. But I see it now. You need me to be small so you can feel big. Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. I exhaled, shaking my head. You know what the worst part is? I used to admire you. I used to think you were strong, smart, worth something. But all you were is a bully. Her face paled. The light turned green, and I pressed the gas, my heart pounding. She didn't speak the rest of the way home. When we got inside, she went straight upstairs, slamming the bedroom door behind her. I sat in the living room, staring at the blank TV screen. I wasn't just seeing Jessica differently. I was starting to realize something else. This marriage? It was already over. She just didn't know it yet. The tension in our house had become unbearable. Jessica barely spoke to me, and when she did, it was clipped and calculated, like she was testing the waters, trying to see if I'd return to the docile husband she had spent years molding. I knew what she was thinking. If she ignored it long enough, I'd back down. But I wasn't backing down. Not anymore. She didn't know it yet, but I'd already let go of this marriage. I wasn't hers anymore. I was just biding my time. A few days after the dinner with her friends, I came home early from work. Jessica wasn't home, which wasn't unusual. She often had late meetings or client dinners. I never questioned them before. But now I was paying attention. I headed upstairs to change, but when I stepped into our bedroom, something caught my eye. Her closet door was slightly ajar, a few of her clothes hanging out like she had rushed while getting dressed. It wasn't like her. Jessica was meticulous about appearances. She liked things just so. Something in my gut told me to look. I hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward and slid the door open. That's when I saw it. A small, black velvet box, tucked between her folded sweaters on the top shelf. My pulse quickened as I reached for it. It was heavier than I expected, the kind of weight that told you it wasn't some cheap trinket. I flipped it open. Inside was an expensive watch, sleek and modern, the kind of thing a man with money would wear. A small, folded note was wedged beneath it. My hands felt numb as I unfolded the paper. For every stolen moment, I can't wait to see you again. No name, no signature. My breath came slow and measured as I stared at the words, my mind running through every possibility, every explanation. But there was only one. Jessica was cheating. I stood there, gripping the note, feeling the weight of it settle deep into my bones. The denial came first, a whisper in the back of my mind, trying to convince me that maybe there was another explanation. Maybe it was a gift for a friend. Maybe no. I knew the truth. I had felt it for months, maybe years. The way she treated me like an afterthought. The way she dismissed me. The way she had needed to convince herself that I was the problem. That was what all of this had been about. She had to make me less so she wouldn't feel guilty about betraying me. I closed the box, placing it back exactly how I found it. If Jessica didn't know I had seen it, she wouldn't be careful. And I wanted her to keep making mistakes. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Instead, I was going to get proof. That night, Jessica came home late, smiling at her phone as she walked in the door. I watched her from the couch, my expression unreadable. She glanced at me, her usual cool confidence in place. "Hey," she said, slipping off her heels. "Hey," I replied casually. "Long day." She stretched. "You have no idea. These conferences are killing me." "Liar." I nodded. "Yeah, you bet." She smiled, leaning down to kiss my cheek. I let her act like nothing was wrong, like I wasn't already 5 steps ahead of her. The next morning, after she left for work, I installed a GPS tracker under her car. It was small, discreet, something she'd never notice. I synced it to my phone, watching as the blinking dot moved toward her office. Now, all I had to do was wait. That evening, she told me she had a late meeting. I checked my phone. She wasn't at work. She was across town, parked in the valet section of a high-end hotel. I didn't go after her. Not yet. I let her have her night, let her feel safe in her lies. But when she came home hours later, I was already awake, sitting in the dimly lit kitchen, sipping a glass of whiskey. She walked in, surprised to see me still up. "Hey," she said, setting down her purse. "Couldn't sleep?" I smiled. "Something like that." She nodded, stretching. "I'm exhausted. I need a shower." I watched her head upstairs, my grip tightening around my glass. She thought she was in control. She had no idea her game was already over. Jessica was getting sloppy. That was the first thing I noticed. She had spent years making me feel like an idiot, like I was too dull, too predictable, too average to ever suspect anything. But now she thought she was untouchable. That was her first mistake. Her second mistake? She underestimated just how much I could change when given the right motivation. I had spent my life playing by the rules. I believed in loyalty, in marriage, in the kind of love where 2 people supported each other instead of tearing one another down. But Jessica had spent years kicking dirt on my devotion, and now I saw her for what she really was: cold, self-serving, and utterly convinced that she was smarter than me. She had no idea that I was already pulling the strings. After I installed the GPS tracker, I monitored her movements for a full week, looking for patterns. Sure enough, every few nights, she left work, late, and ended up at the same luxury hotel. I didn't need to guess why. I needed proof. So I started planning. Not just revenge, total destruction. First, I took care of the expensive watch I had found hidden in her closet. I didn't take it. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I swapped it out for a cheap, broken watch I had lying around in my gym locker. A scratched face, a torn band, the kind of thing you'd find in a bargain bin. When she finally went to retrieve the gift, expecting luxury, she'd find garbage. That was only step one. Step two? Money. Jessica wasn't just arrogant. She was careless. She had a corporate credit card through her company, something she was supposed to use strictly for business. But I had a gut feeling that her little affair wasn't being funded out of her own pocket. So I checked our shared financial statements. And just like I expected, I found receipts, meals, luxury drinks, hotel expenses, all conveniently categorized under business meetings. She wasn't just cheating. She was committing fraud. I smiled to myself as I forwarded the flagged transactions to her company's finance department. Anonymously, of course. Step 3 was even simpler. I needed to see it happen. So the next time she told me she had a late meeting, I didn't argue. I kissed her goodbye, wished her luck, and casually checked my phone. The GPS tracker blinked its familiar route, leading straight to the hotel. I waited exactly 20 minutes before grabbing my keys and heading there myself. By the time I arrived, she was already upstairs. I parked a few spots away from her car, keeping my distance. I wasn't here to confront her. Not yet. I was here to watch. The hotel was sleek, modern, the kind of place that catered to the wealthy and discreet. I stepped inside the lobby, keeping my head down as I made my way to the bar. I ordered a drink and waited. An hour passed, then 2, and then, right on schedule, the elevator doors opened. Jessica stepped out, her dress slightly rumpled, her hair tousled just enough to tell me everything I needed to know. She glanced around, her expression relaxed, her guard down. She didn't even look for me, because why would she? She thought she had fooled me completely. I didn't move. I didn't call out to her, didn't make a scene. I just raised my phone, zoomed in, and snapped a picture. Then another, and another. By the time she reached the parking lot, I already had more than enough proof. She had no idea she had just handed me the final nail in her coffin. I watched her drive away, my heartbeat steady, my breathing calm. The next time she saw me, it wouldn't be because I caught her. It would be because I ended her. Jessica had no idea her life was already unraveling. She carried herself like nothing had changed, still flashing those fake smiles, still scrolling through her phone at dinner like she wasn't actively betraying the man sitting across from her. But I knew everything, and I was about to show her just how much. The morning of our anniversary, Jessica kissed my cheek like she actually meant it. "I made dinner reservations for us tonight," she said, running a hand through my hair. "Dress nice." I smirked. "Oh, I will." She had no idea. The hours passed slowly, but I was patient. I had been waiting for this moment since the first time she mocked me in front of her friends, since the first time she made me feel like I wasn't enough. And now, finally, I was going to take everything from her the way she had tried to take everything from me. By the time evening rolled around, I was calm, cold, prepared. I dressed in my best suit, the one Jessica had always insisted made me look like I actually belonged somewhere important. That was the thing about her. She never saw me as enough on my own. I always had to be dressed up, polished, fixed. But tonight, I wasn't dressing up for her. I was dressing for the moment she'd remember for the rest of her miserable life. She met me downstairs in a sleek black dress, her makeup flawless, the perfect image of a devoted wife taking her husband out for a romantic evening. If I hadn't seen the receipts, the messages, the hotel visits, I might have believed the illusion. Too bad the mask was about to slip. We arrived at the restaurant, one of those places where the lighting is just dim enough to make everything feel intimate, where the servers all wear pressed white shirts and greet you by name. Jessica had always loved places like this. The exclusivity, the attention. She basked in it. She ordered the most expensive bottle of champagne without even glancing at the menu. "It's a special night," she told the waiter with a dazzling smile. I smiled back at her, lifting my glass. "It really is." She sipped her drink, studying me over the rim. You're in a good mood. I nodded. I've been looking forward to this all day. She reached across the table, running her fingers over my hand. I know things have been tense between us lately, but I really think this trip will be good for us. I raised an eyebrow. Trip? Jessica nodded, her voice softening. There's another convention in Miami next month. I was thinking you could come with me this time. Make it a couple's getaway. I smirked. Miami. Another convention. Another excuse to sneak around. That sounds perfect. I lied smoothly. She beamed, completely unaware of the storm about to hit. The waiter returned, setting our meals down in front of us. Jessica lifted her glass again, ready to toast. To another year of marriage, she said, her voice warm. No matter what, we always find our way back to each other. I smiled. To another year. Then I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. Jessica frowned, setting her glass down. What's this? I leaned back in my chair, watching her face. Go ahead. Take a look. She hesitated, then picked up the phone. As soon as she unlocked the screen, her face paled. The first image was of her walking out of the hotel lobby, looking relaxed, her dress slightly rumpled. The second? A zoomed-in shot of her checking her reflection in the glass doors. The third? A casino security screenshot. Jessica, laughing, draped over the arm of a man in a suit, lips pressed against his. I watched as her hand started to shake. Her eyes darted up to meet mine. Ryan, I tilted my head. Something wrong. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I chuckled, taking a slow sip of my drink. You know, for someone who thinks she's smarter than me, you really aren't careful. She swallowed hard. I can explain. I set my glass down. Oh, I'd love to hear it. Jessica's breathing turned shallow. It was just a don't. I interrupted, my voice sharper now. Don't insult me with excuses. I know. I've known for weeks. Her eyes filled with panic. Ryan, please. Let's talk about this at home. I shook my head. No, I think here is perfect. You love putting on a show, right? Love turning me into a joke in front of people? Let's see how funny you think this is. Jessica's hands clenched into fists. You set me up. I laughed. No, sweetheart. You did. I leaned forward. I just let you dig your own grave. She stared at me, her lips parting like she wanted to say something, to find some way to flip this around like she always did. But there was nothing she could say. I stood, straightening my suit jacket. Oh, and before I forget, I pulled another envelope from my pocket and tossed it onto the table. Jessica's eyes flicked down. Divorce papers, I said. Her breath hitched. No, yes, I said smoothly. And before you even think about trying to fight me on it, just know that I already emptied our joint accounts. I leaned down, lowering my voice so only she could hear. You won't get a cent from me. Jessica's face crumpled. Ryan, I pulled a few bills from my wallet and dropped them next to my plate. This should cover my half, I said, smirking. You can pay for yours. Then I turned and walked out, leaving her sitting there, humiliated, exposed, and completely alone. I didn't look back. She had spent years tearing me down, making me feel small like I was nothing. But tonight, she finally learned the truth. She had never been worth losing myself over. The drive home was quiet. No music, no distractions, just the steady hum of the road beneath my tires and the weight of finality settling in my chest. I had done it. Jessica was finally out of my life, or at least on her way out. But as much satisfaction as I got from watching her face crumble under the weight of her own betrayal, there was something else, something heavier pressing against me. A decade. That's how long we had been together. 10 years of my life spent loving someone who had never really loved me back. She had worn me down, little by little, year after year, until I didn't even recognize myself anymore. And now, even though I had exposed her, even though I had won, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had wasted so much time on someone who had never deserved me. I pulled into the driveway and sat in the car for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel. My house now, felt different, lighter somehow, like the weight of Jessica's presence had already started to fade. I stepped inside, and for the first time in years, I didn't brace myself for criticism. The silence wasn't suffocating. It was peaceful. I poured myself a drink, letting the whiskey burn down my throat as I stared out the window, She'd be home soon, storming in, demanding an explanation, trying to twist things back into her control. I had seen her do it 100 times before, turning every situation to make herself the victim. But this time, there was no escape for her. An hour later, the front door burst open. Jessica stood in the entryway, her breath uneven, her makeup smudged. She looked like she had been crying or screaming. "You humiliated me," she seethed, slamming the door behind her. I took another sip of my drink, completely unbothered. "Good." Her jaw clenched. "You planned this." "You." I set my glass down, cutting her off. "No, Jessica. You planned this. The second you decided to cheat, you planned this." She let out a bitter laugh. "You don't understand, no." I interrupted, my voice sharper now. "You don't understand. I've spent years making excuses for you, letting you treat me like I was nothing, convincing myself that I had to fight for a marriage while you were out there, throwing it away." Jessica's eyes flashed. "That's not fair." I stepped forward, my voice dangerously calm. "Fair? You want to talk about fair? Where was fairness when you were laughing at me in front of your friends? Where was fairness when you spent years making me feel like I was lucky to have you?" She swallowed hard, shifting on her feet. "I made mistakes," I laughed, shaking my head. "Jessica, you didn't make mistakes. You made choices." I leaned in, lowering my voice. "And now, you get to live with them." She stared at me, breathing heavily, and for the first time since I had known her, she actually looked scared. Not of me, but of the realization that she had finally lost control. Her hands curled into fists. "So that's it? You're just throwing everything away?" I scoffed. "I'm throwing it away? Jessica, you threw it away the second you decided I wasn't enough for you." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't feel a single ounce of sympathy. She reached for me, her voice softening. "Ryan, please, we can fix this." I stepped back, shaking my head. "No, we can't. Because I'm done." Jessica's breath hitched. But I grabbed the envelope from the counter, the same divorce papers I had given her at dinner, and held them out to her. "Sign them," I said firmly. Her lower lip trembled. "Ryan, please. I love you." I tilted my head. "No, you don't. You love control. You love knowing they'll always be there, always picking up the pieces while you get to do whatever you want." I exhaled, my voice steady. "But not anymore." Jessica shook her head, stepping back as if she could physically retreat from the reality of what was happening. I set the divorce papers down on the table. "Sign them," I repeated. "Or don't. It doesn't matter. Either way, this marriage is over." She stared at me, silent and broken. For the first time, Jessica had no comeback. No remark. No manipulation. She had lost. I grabbed my drink and walked past her without another word, heading upstairs. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just left her standing there, in the ruins of the life she had destroyed. Jessica hadn't signed the divorce papers yet. I knew she was stalling, trying to find a way to twist things in her favor. She had spent years controlling every aspect of our relationship, bending reality until it suited her, and she wasn't about to let go of that power easily. But this time, she wasn't up against the same man she had manipulated for years. She was up against me. I had given her a deadline. I made it clear, sign the papers, or we take this to court. I wasn't going to let her drag this out and pretend there was anything left to save. But of course, Jessica didn't play by the rules. A week after our confrontation, I got an email from her lawyer. She was contesting the divorce. I let out a slow breath, staring at the screen, barely surprised. Of course she was. She wanted leverage. She thought she could negotiate, thought she could wear me down the way she always had. I forwarded the email to my lawyer without a second thought. Let's take her apart. A few days later, I found myself sitting across from Jessica in a conference room at my lawyer's office. She had come dressed for battle, sleek black dress, hair pinned back, the same cold, calculating expression she always wore when she wanted to be in control. But there was something else, too. Desperation. She wasn't as confident as she wanted me to believe. Her lawyer, an older man with tired eyes, cleared his throat. "We understand that emotions are high, but our goal is to reach a fair resolution." I smirked. "Fair?" I turned to Jessica. "You don't get to ask for fairness, not after what you did." Jessica's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. My lawyer leaned forward, flipping through a folder. Given the evidence of infidelity, my client has more than enough grounds to move forward without negotiation. However, we're prepared to offer a straightforward settlement. Jessica scoffed. Settlement? I built this life with you, Ryan. I deserve. I cut her off. You deserve nothing. I leaned in, my voice steady. I paid for this house. I built my business from the ground up while you laughed at me. I worked my ass off to be a good husband while you were sneaking around behind my back. Her lawyer raised a hand. Let's keep this civil. I ignored him. You can fight this all you want, Jessica, but the judge will see what I see. A cheating wife trying to cling to a life she doesn't deserve. Jessica's face flushed. I made a mistake. I laughed coldly. No, you made a choice. And now you're going to live with it. Her lawyer cleared his throat. Jessica would like to request a financial settlement in exchange for signing the papers without further dispute. I exhaled, shaking my head. Unbelievable. I turned back to Jessica. You're actually trying to profit from this? She lifted her chin, her voice quieter now. I lost my job, Ryan. I smirked. Yeah, and whose fault is that? Jessica flinched. I sat back in my chair, tapping my fingers against the table. You're not getting a cent from me. In fact, if you try to drag this out, I'll make sure you walk away with less than nothing. Her lawyer sighed. Ryan, there's no need for hostility. I leaned forward. Oh, but there is. I turned my gaze back to Jessica. Because this isn't just about the cheating. It's about all of it. Every time you made me feel small. Every time you laughed at me in front of your friends. Every time you treated me like I was lucky to have you. Jessica's mask slipped, just for a second. I saw the panic in her eyes, the realization that I wasn't bluffing. She had lost, and she knew it. Her lawyer shifted uncomfortably. If you refuse negotiation, this will go to trial. I smiled. Good. Let's go to trial. Let's put it all on the record. Jessica inhaled sharply. You wouldn't. I tilted my head. Wouldn't I? Her fingers curled around the edge of the table. She looked at her lawyer, then back at me. And then, finally, she exhaled. Fine. My lawyer slid the divorce papers toward her. Sign here. Jessica stared at the documents for a long moment. Then, slowly, she picked up the pen and signed her name. Just like that, it was over. I stood up first, buttoning my jacket. Have a nice life, Jessica. She didn't look up. I walked out of the conference room, my steps steady, my heart lighter than it had been in years. I had finally won. The day the divorce was finalized, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. No tension in my chest, no lingering doubts, no sick feeling in my gut like I had been ignoring something obvious. It was over. She was over. And for the first time in a decade, I didn't have to answer to anyone but myself. Jessica had dragged out the process as long as she could, throwing every excuse and manipulation she could muster into the mix, but hadn't mattered. The evidence was too strong, the truth too undeniable. The judge ruled in my favor. No spousal support, no drawn-out negotiations. She walked away with only what she had before she met me. And I walked away with everything. I had wasted years fighting for a marriage that had never been worth it, but now that it was over, I wasn't going to waste another second thinking about her. It was time to rebuild. The first thing I did was reclaim my space. Jessica had always insisted on decorating our house in a way that suited her, minimalist, modern, cold. Everything had been carefully curated to reflect her image of success, never mind what I actually liked. So I tore it all down. The gray furniture? Gone. The sleek, uncomfortable chairs? Out the door. I replaced them with things that felt like me, warm colors, sturdy furniture, things that made a home feel like a place where I actually wanted to be. I didn't stop there. I threw myself into work, expanding my gym, taking on new clients, launching the personal training program I'd always wanted to start, but never had the time for, because Jessica had made sure I believed my dreams were small and foolish. Within a month, business was booming. People wanted to train with the guy who had turned his life around, who had walked through fire and come out stronger. I didn't just survive the divorce. I thrived in its aftermath. Then one day she called. I was at the gym, finishing up a session with a client, when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Jessica. I let it ring. A minute later, a text popped up. Jessica, can we talk? I stared at the message for a long moment, then locked my phone and went back to work. That should have been the end of it. But Jessica? She didn't know how to let go. The messages kept coming, each one more desperate than the last. Jessica, I just need to explain. Jessica, I miss you, Ryan. Jessica, can't we at least meet? Just once? I didn't respond to a single one. 2 weeks later, I ran into her by accident. I was at a cafe downtown, grabbing coffee before a meeting when I spotted her at a table near the window. She looked different, tired. The usual confidence in her posture was gone, replaced by something unfamiliar. She must have seen me walk in because her eyes locked onto mine almost immediately. For a second, I thought about walking out, but then she stood up and made her way over. Ryan, she said, a small, hesitant smile on her lips. I nodded. Jessica. She looked me up and down, like she was seeing me for the first time. You look good. I smirked. I'm good. She exhaled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Can we sit for a minute? I didn't answer right away. Then finally I shrugged. Sure. We sat at a small corner table, the awkwardness between us thick. She folded her hands on the table. I just wanted to say, I am sorry. I raised an eyebrow. For what exactly? Jessica swallowed. For everything. For the way I treated you. For how things ended. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. You mean for cheating? Or for getting caught? Her eyes darted away. I never meant to hurt you. I laughed under my breath. Yeah, see, that's the thing, Jessica. You didn't mean to. You spent years tearing me down. You enjoyed it. I tilted my head. So why now? Why the sudden regret? She hesitated. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she admitted, because I lost everything. There it was. The real reason. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. No, Jessica. You didn't lose everything. You threw it away. Her hands tightened around her coffee cup. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I held up a hand. Stop. She blinked. I leaned forward. I'm not the guy you left behind. You don't get to crawl back into my life just because yours is falling apart. Her eyes shimmered with something close to tears. I picked up my coffee and stood. Take care, Jessica. I walked out without looking back. And this time, I knew. She was the one left picking up the pieces. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.